Okay, so I'm back into CodePen and I'm in my dashboard. If you're not sure how to get to your dashboard, and let's just say that you start by going to codepen.io, you can log in and then you're going to go to your dashboard. And if you followed along with the last tutorial, then you should also have a pen that's called paragraphs and headings, just like I do. And one of the things that's going to be really simple for you to, keep your collection straight is if you go down to collections. If you remember last time, whenever we made that paragraphs and headings, I went ahead and I created a collection for myself called practice lessons. So if I look in my dashboard under collections and I click on practice lessons, you'll see that I've got this category now for practice lessons, and any pen that I add that category to is going to show up here, which is pretty cool. So anyway, I'm going to go back to my dashboard. And let's look at the pens, and you can see this is a different view of it. Now, what I can also do is I can go ahead and click on this, so I can open it. And I don't want to change this. What I want to do instead is I want to fork this, okay? And now that I've got a fork, you'll notice that up here, what happened was that I ended up having a brand new URL. Okay, so this is a totally different thing. I'm going to edit this because it's a new URL. It's a new fork. I can save this as something new, and I'm going to call this articles and nesting. And the reason I'm going to use that as a fork, and let's go ahead and save it. The reason I'm using that as a fork is because I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. I've already got some headings and I've got some paragraphs. And so the point that I want to make here is I want to go over how to do some nesting. And uh, one of the things that we talked a little bit about in the lecture is how to nest things properly inside of an article. And the idea behind an article, let's just first of all go ahead and let's make something that is an article. We'll do an article tag just like this, and we'll start to end it with that uh, open bracket and then or the left angle bracket and then a forward slash, and then you see article pops up right here, and then I can go ahead and click it to end it, and you see I've got an empty tag. I don't have anything inside of it, but I could nest something inside. I can also go ahead and click the return key so that I can place stuff inside of that article. Now, the easiest way to nest something is to literally just copy it. Just copy all of this. And actually, let's just copy the entire section that we've got here. Actually, we'll cut it. Okay, and then we'll come up here and we'll put it inside of that article. All right, and if I wanted to be really good about making sure that everything is visually clear in terms of the way it's nested, is that right here I can go ahead and tab that paragraph in like I just did. And then also these things, if I select them and I hit tab, it doesn't overwrite them with a tab. It actually tabs them in, which is pretty nice, so that I can clearly see that my article right here is it has stuff in it. Now, if I were to collapse this, you see this little drop down arrow? I can collapse that so that I can, see more efficiently what else is on my screen. And then I just click on that arrow again to open it, which is pretty nice because now you can definitely see that it's nested. And if I click on what's in between, it also opens it as well, which is also pretty nice because you can see that something's definitely nested inside of there. Okay, so now I've got something nested in an article. Right, before I said the purpose of an article, or at least the original reasoning behind having something called an article, is because that way you could consider something that could be syndicated, right? You could lift an article out of one blog and you could syndicate it somewhere else, and if you grabbed the entire article, it would be self-sufficient. And the way that something like an article would be self-sufficient is that it would have proper markup. Well, now the standard is a best practice to have inside of an article is an actual thing called a header. And inside the header is where your heading level should go, so that it's really clear that that header is the thing that heads the article, and it's going to definitely have some sort of heading that serves as like a title of some sort to explain what the article is about. So one of the things that we need to do then is we need to put this H2 inside of an article. So I've already got it written, right? So one of the things I already showed you that you could do using CodePen is that you can um, use a shortcut. And just as another reminder, I'm not going to tell you this for every single pen that I create, but down here there's a little button, right? If I click on that button, it tells me the shortcut so that I can wrap some code with some something if I use a keyboard command. And mine is Command Shift A. Yours is going to be something different if you're on Windows. I can click anywhere to get out of that. So let's go ahead and highlight this H2. And if I do Command Shift and the letter A, it says, you know, what do you want to wrap it with? Well, I want to wrap it with something called header. It's a header tag. I'll hit enter, and then what's really wonderful is that automatically went ahead and it nested that H2 inside of a header tag for me, which is terrific. Now, one of the things you'll see over here is that it doesn't visually look any different. And the reason is because a header is a block level element and an H2 is a block level element. And unless you style it to tell it to look different, a block level element is going to take up the maximum amount of width of its parent block level element. And in this case, the H2 is block level and it's going to take up 100% of its parent, which is a header. A header is also block level, so header is already taking up 100%. So, and an article, which is the parent of the header, is also block level and it's taking up 100% in the absence of any styling that tells it to behave differently. So all of these things are 100% and they don't have visual styling that's like a different color or a border or something like that. So visually it doesn't really look like anything is happening, but what's important is that over here on the left is that semantically we're doing this right, okay? And so the way that you could do this if you wanted to keep it really clear is you could, you know, have your article and then you could have your header with your H2 inside of it. And if it's easier for you to just drop this paragraph down one line so that you can see that it's separate, you can. You can even do something like that. But I find that sometimes having too many extra spaces is kind of, you know, it's a little bit harder to see what's going on. So it's really up to you how many spaces you want there to be. Now, this H3 does not have to have a header. It can just be an H3. So let's just do something that's a little bit more meaningful maybe. Like instead of this just saying heading level 1, let's say that that this is going to be about music coming to, I don't know, Coachella Valley, something like that. Okay. Actually, I meant to, there, that's correctly spelled. All right, so music coming to Coachella Valley. All right. Now, the other thing that we want to do is we want to have something that is the heading of our article. All right, so for this H2, let's just say David Byrne. That's a musician who I think is coming to Coachella Valley pretty soon. All right, and so, and you could even put a year if you wanted to. I'm not going to, but you say David Byrne. And then this is down here is where you could start to type some stuff about David Byrne coming to Coachella Valley. Okay. Now the other thing is for the H3 you could say all about David Byrne or what is his history or something like that. David Byrne's history. Okay, and then you could have a little bit about David Byrne, something, you know, like David Byrne, just copy this, was the lead singer of the Talking Heads or something like that. All right, and then you could go on to say more stuff, blah, 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 right? All right, we can continue to type more things. All right, and so you've got more information down here, and you can see that this is a subheading of this heading, all right, but this is the heading that heads up this entire article. And then the next one that we could have down here, right, we've got our second instance. I'm going to kind of come up here, and then we would want another article to come down here. So let's do it similarly like what we did over here. and I'm going to highlight this entire thing just to be really succinct. And I'm going to do my Command Shift A, and I will type article because I want to wrap an article around it. And so now I've got an article around that, but the problem is I still need a header around this H2. So again, I'll do Command Shift A and I'll type header. All right, and now I've got proper syntax. And at this point, I would need to put the name of some other artist that's coming to Coachella Valley. So let's type something like, oops, Hito, okay. And then we can leave this if we wanted to keep a consistent format as what we have up here. Then we come down maybe after our paragraph tag and we'll type in H3 and we will put, oops, Ito's history. All right, and we can end the H3. We'll open that angle bracket, do a / and then you see the ending H3 tag pops up. We'll just commit to that with our return key and we'll do a paragraph tag and we can, I'm just going to paste some stuff in, right? And we'll do an ending paragraph tag, okay? And then if we come down, you'll see that this is a very similar format as what we have up here, okay? All right, and so this is a good stopping place, I think. And one of the things, actually really quickly, that we can also do is, I want to show you really quickly how you can write comments in here. And if I want to type a comment, let's say that I want it to be visible to the programmers who would look at this, but I want the browser to just completely ignore it. Then one of the things that I can do is I can start to type a comment. The way that you type comments is you start with an open angle bracket or a left angle bracket, and then you put an exclamation mark and then 2 dashes like that. And then you see how everything becomes commented out and it disappeared. It's because now it's inside of a comment that the browser is, you know, basically ignoring. So I'm going to put a space here and I'm going to put first article goes here, right? And then to end that, what I need to do is I need to do another 2 dashes and the right angle bracket, all right, and that ends the comment. And a comment doesn't have something that's opened and closed, it's formatted like this. And then anything that you put, you know, inside of here, like this, if you want it to really stand out, it will be invisible to the browser, okay? So I can put something like first article goes here. Now if I copy that, which is kind of cool, I can come down here and right before my second article I can put second article goes here, and then it becomes something that's really easy for me to see whenever I'm looking at my browser. And if I really wanted, I could also do something like end first article, something like that, right? And to keep it consistent, you know, I could copy that and come down to the bottom of this article and say end second article, right? And so that's how you can really easily use comments to make sure that everything is really easy to understand inside of your code view, okay? All right, so the last couple of other things that we haven't talked about how to do yet out of CodePen is how to export or embed or share stuff, right? We briefly talked about it, but I want to show you something. So first of all, I want to save it, make sure that I save this. And I also am going to go ahead real quickly and I'm going to add it to my practice lessons collection. And the next thing I want to do is I want to show you, if you click on export over here, I want to show you 2 different options. One is if you click on export zip, all right, it's going to ask you where you want to save this. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'll make a new folder on my desktop. You can make it wherever you want. And I'm going to call it Matt 125 practice lessons, right? And I'm going to just save it as articles and nesting. It's going to save it as a zipped archive. All right. And I want to show you something. If I go into my Finder on Windows, you'll go into your Windows Explorer and you're going to find where you saved that. on my desktop and in that folder that I created called Mat 125 Practice Lessons, you see that it downloaded something called Articles and Nesting. That's what we told it to be called. And so if I double click that, it unzips it for me, and then inside of it we have an HTML file. And I'm going to just do a quick view. Windows, you can't do that, but Mac, if I hit the spacebar, it shows me a quick view of the page that I have. It looks like an HTML page. It downloads something that's a README text and also a license. And what's nice is that the README text will have your CodePen web address where that was saved, and the license tells you, what you can do with it and stuff. But this is kind of nice if you always want to have an archive, and then it tells you what the web address is in case you forget, I don't know. I don't know why you'd forget your login, but that way you always have it. Okay. Now, the other thing too is that if I were to open this, I haven't shown you how to set up a web editor necessarily yet, but if I were to open this in some sort of editor, this is kind of a useful thing. I'm going to open it in something called Komodo Edit. And all right, and let's just collapse this for a second. And what you'll notice is that it's got all this other stuff that we didn't put in there. Remember before I had mentioned to you that when you export something from CodePen, basically it will put your pen inside of this body tag, and it also puts everything else inside of the document that is required, like the doc type, the HTML document declaration tags, the head, and it'll call the title of the document the name that you told it that you wanted the pen to be named. So in this case, it called it Articles and Nesting, right? So it's really nice because I didn't have to type all that stuff. It did it for me. It did all of the valid stuff, and then it put all of my material right here inside of the body, which is great. And so I have now that document, and I didn't have to go and type all this stuff. And I could just do it really quickly on the web and then just export it out. And then I've got an archive of it, which is pretty cool. And so if I wanted to clean that up a little bit, I could and get rid of that extra, all that extra space. I could do that. Okay, and then I can just close this up. You don't have to, I'll show you guys later how you can set up something like Komodo Edit or Brackets or one of those kinds of editors. You don't have to do that, but I just wanted to show you that for now. The other thing too, you can just very simply copy this address that you've saved your pen to. You can copy that address, and then you can just share it, in a discussion or in an email or whatever, if you want someone to go and look at it. Okay, so that's the end of this demonstration. Move on to the next.